Hello and welcome to Pictorial Planet. My name's John Finch. Today we continue our journey with Rodinal and getting the best out of that developer. I'm going to be looking at stand development, and I'm going to specifically look at two dilutions and whether or not we can get any more speed out of our film using stand development. The two dilutions I'm going to be using today for our stand development is 1 + 100 and 1 + 200, and I'm interested to see if either of them give better grain or better film speed. So that's something we'll be looking at when we scan in these negatives. But I've got my film in here ready. I've got 20 centigrade water, 500 milliliters. For my first development, I've got 5 milliliters of Rodinal, so it's 1 + 100. And here I've got some 20 centigrade water that I'm going to use for a pre-soak. I've got my stop and my fix. Now with stop, you don't have to use a stop bath with stand development. You can use multiple water rinses. Just make sure you keep the temperature of the water the same as the developer. You don't want big differences in temperatures or you'll shock the film and cause possible reticulation. So I've got those all ready. Now, one thing to know about stand development, we're using very dilute developers here, so I need to make sure that those developers soak into the film evenly. And the best way to do that is to give a pre-soak with water at the same temperature. So I'm going to pour in this 500 milliliters of water and start my clock. Now, whenever you pre-soak a film, you make sure you agitate the film just as though you're developing. You want to make sure that this pre-soak water is going into the emulsion evenly and that there's no bubbles. So let's make sure we give this a nice agitation. I'm going to give it 30 seconds initially, and then I'm going to tap tap to get any bubbles on the film to lift up and break through the reel to get away from the film. So that's now pre-soaking. Why are we doing this? Well, the emulsion is now soaking water in and expanding. And as it expands, it on a microscopic level opens up the pores in the emulsion. And this will allow our weak developer to soak in very quickly and very evenly in that emulsion, so it can start to develop the film very evenly. You see, uneven development is the bane of stand developers. It's so easy to get uneven development, and of course that ruins the film. So this is one of the tactics I use to stop that uneven development happening. So that's soaking nicely. I'm going to give it another couple of agitations. Tap tap. Now I need to do this for at least 2 minutes, so between 2 and 5 minutes is fine. It doesn't make any difference to the film as long as it's a minimum of 2 minutes to get a really good soak. So now's the time. I'm getting ready now to get my developer sorted, so let me add these 5 milliliters here. And there we go. Give that a quick wash, pop it here. There's my 2 minutes. There's no rush, I can take my time. So I'm going to empty out the pre-soaked water. And pour in my developer. And start the clock. Now let's start immediately agitating the film. Now when you agitate any film doing any kind of development, make sure you have a soft but firm or a gentle but firm agitation. Now that sounds strange, gentle but firm. But what we need to do is break the laminar flow of that developer over the film surface. Laminar flow, in case you don't know, is where the developer just moves across the film but doesn't mix. So we're not getting any change of developer. There's a microscopic layer of water, of developer I should say, on the emulsion, and we're not breaking that microscopic layer away, so we're refreshing. So we need a good solid agitation. And you'll also notice that I twist the tank like this as I'm agitating. And that too spins the developer a little bit and helps break that laminar flow. So I've agitated for the first minute, and now I'm going to leave the film to stand in that developer with no further agitation for a whole hour. Now it's crucial that this film doesn't move. This whole thing has to be absolutely still. So I'm going to walk away now, walk well away from this and not disturb this tank at all for the next hour, so that it's absolutely still. So let's come back in an hour's time. So 60 minutes have now passed for this developer to be standing here. There's no rush at this point. A few minutes here and there isn't going to make any difference to this film. But if you find your film is constantly underdeveloped or low in contrast or thin, then just add 10 or 15 minutes to your stand development and see if it improves. And if you find your negatives are thick, too dense, or too contrasty, then reduce your development time. I'd say take it down another 10 or 15 minutes and try again until you get the negatives that have just the right contrast for what you're trying to achieve. Remember, everybody's different. So when people say use stand development for 45 minutes or for an hour or for 2 hours, those figures are arbitrary. They're just guidelines. They're figures that make them happy with their negatives but might not make you happy with yours. So find your own time through experimentation. So the film's been in there now 61.5 minutes. No problem at all. I'll just empty the developer out now and pop my stop bath in. Now when I stop a film, I always give it a gentle agitation. I want that stop bath to evenly distribute around the emulsion so that it stops all development. So there we are, that's stopped. It only takes a few seconds to stop bath, to stop a film with stop bath. So I'm going to save that and use it again later. And now let's put our fix in. So I'll fix this film now, hang it up to dry. I'll do the second development with 1 + 200, that's 2.5 millilitres of developer into 500 millilitres of water. And we'll do that also for 1 hour. Now last week I mentioned that if you only use 2.5 millilitres of Rodinal, you may not be using enough Rodinal, but that is an arbitrary figure and I'm not sure in the truth of that. You see, I've also got other documentation that says 2.5 millilitres is okay for a film. So with our 1 + 200, I'll still be using 500 ml of water and I'll just add 2.5 ml of developer to it. This is a very economical way of developing film. So let's now continue with that development. I will dry the films, scan them in, and we'll look at them on the computer. This is Ilford FP4, and I ran it through at ISO 100 for this photograph, and it's the 1 + 100 stand for an hour, and it's looking quite nice. The grain is well contained, it doesn't look too bad at all, and there's some very slight occludence I can see. It's not bad, but let's compare this to the ISO 200. That will interest me. So here is the EI 100 on the left and the EI 200 on the right, using the same dilution, 1 + 100, and we can see that the grain is slightly increased at the higher ISO. But it's actually a perfectly good photograph. It can stand I think an ISO 200, no problem. Let's have a look at 400. So again, 100 on the left and ISO or EI 400 on the right, and it's still looking quite acceptable. The grain has increased a little bit more, but not bad, and I'm sure I could make a nice print of that without too much problem at all. Let's look at the 800. Now we're starting, as you can see, we're starting to lose definition. I'm not sure what's happened here. I'll just move that there. There we go. So definitely a lot more grain now. Now it's becoming a little bit in your face, and I'm starting to lose definition in the detail of the flower. So I think at ISO 800 we've lost it, but at 400 it's not too bad. I think we're okay there, and I would use this film at 400, and 200 is fine. Unfortunately, we've got a little bit more sun or brighter light, not sunshine, but brighter light in the left-hand photograph. So it's throwing us out a little bit in our comparison, but I think we're starting to get the gist. Now let's compare the 1+100 on the left here with 1+200 on the right. Here are the two scans. EI 100 on the left, EI 100 on the right, but the difference is dilution. We've got the 1 to 100 left and the 1 to 200 on the right, both for 1 hour. There's a little bit more light on this right hand flower, but as you can see, I am quite interested with this grain. Look at that. The grain has actually reduced. We've less grain with a 1+200. Now I'm not sure if we're getting a little less definition. Let's go to ISO 200 on the right, and now we're really looking nice. Look at this, 1+200 dilution at ISO 200 with FP4, and this is looking really nice. We're getting some lovely acutance and a nice sharp definition. So there's a slight advantage in the magnification on the left hand side, so don't let that throw you. This is a nice photograph. So 1+200 ISO 200 is a good match. Let's go up and see what ISO 400 is like. I'll just move these to get them similar. There we are. So ISO 400 is not bad at all. Now again, we've got a little bit more light on this flower, so don't let that throw you, but look at this definition. It's sharp as a pin. The grain is better on the left, definitely better grain. More grainy on, did I say the left? I mean the right, I beg your pardon. The grain is better on the right than the left. Very nice. I quite like this 1+200. It's showing me that I'm getting some really good and sharp photographs. Now the thing is, will they print? That's something I'm going to have to check out. So I'm thinking my favorite here is the ISO 200 at 1+200. That looks nice to me. So that's what I'll print. I'm going to print one of this Rodinal 1+100 and one plus this Rodinal 1+200, and we'll have a look at the prints. So I've made my prints and I'm very pleased. Look at this. This is my 1+100 for 1 hour, and that's a really lovely print. Look how sharp that little flower is. The shadows are lovely and detailed. I ran that through at ISO 100. That's FP4, and that really looks nice. It's 35mm, so I'm really getting a lot of sharpness and no grain. It's practically grain free, and that's a medium speed film. So lovely way to develop your FP4 or Pan F. Absolutely lovely. But look at the surprise I got when I did the 1+200, because you know, I prefer this print. I like it. I'm getting more gradation in the flower. It's at least as sharp, if not sharper. Look at that stem, it's three-dimensional. The shadows are lovely, it's brought the shadows up. I'm getting ISO 200. So this is ISO 200, 1+100 for an hour stand in Rodinal. That is a lovely developer. I'm so pleased with that. Now, previously I always did 1+100 for an hour, and that was my kind of go-to for stand developing with Rodinal. But look at this, I'm going to change and use the 1+200 for an hour. It's giving me a better print. So there's the surprise for me. Lovely. Thank you all for watching. I've got to thank my patrons. You must all thank my patrons. They bring this channel to you. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you guys so much. Please subscribe. Look out for next week's video, and bye for now.